So Ravi sir, my next question to you is, as we are talking about this aspect, and as ma'am has already highlighted that we need a solution to this. So what makes a good digital identity as far as you are concerned, and you have been working with Polygon on several projects as well. So is blockchain useful? What are the other solutions apart from DID? If you can just highlight that.
No, sure. So I think as we discussed about, some of the good attributes that make a digital identity really valuable. I think the verification and the authentication at a high assurance, right? So even if you are using in the government sector or you are using in the private sector,
Fantastic.
it should have the same standard, whether you are applying it for admission in a college, opening a bank account, or, applying for a job. It has to have the same kind of an assurance wherever there is a verification required. Again, from the other perspective, like it has to be unique within a particular system, and even a system should uniquely give you an identity which represent only one individual. When it comes to the consent and the privacy, I think those are also very important aspect, as we discussed, that it has to provide the user privacy at the discretion of the user. Now, when it comes to, why blockchain is needed, I particularly feel that blockchain raises the bar for which we are talking about, the privacy enhancing aspect. So that's where blockchain comes very handy. It provides the unlinkability between the secured identity, right? So if I'm using my email ID, every time I, let's say, book a flight ticket, go to a hotel, and then go to a restaurant, there is a linkage possible where I can indicate that this person, we can create a digital avatar of a person and indicates that this person has moved from place A to B, stayed in a hotel, ate at a restaurant, and so on. That kind of a unlinkability between, the different activities can be done, which can again be substantiated with the help of blockchain.
Perfect. So Mushi sir, what's your view on this?
Look, with the blockchain, you have, as both Ravi and Devjani has mentioned, that you can do a lot of different things in terms of verification. You have full control. We are moving in a world where data localization and privacy is becoming fundamental to anything. This started with the GDPR regulations in Europe, and now we are moving to something similar globally. Now, with the blockchain, we have to remember that it's not a lightning rod. It is not a solution to everything else. It's just a newer way of controlling and doing things. Blockchains networks can also be hacked, not the blockchain itself, but the networks could be hacked and data could be leaked. So I think it's going to be very important that the blockchains that we use or the networks that we use are having strong security credentials and cybersecurity credentials in particular, and are being, in a certain way, you may start seeing governments authorizing certain networks to be allowed to run digital identities, right? Now, we're going to have a two-tier model going forward. One, which will be government verified, government certified in some senses, and non-government certified, which will be used for everything else. For example, you could be using it for regulated mandates where identity is required to be checked, but it's not because the government needs it, right? So you could then use any type of blockchain which can verify yourself. So that, I think, is going to be the beauty of it. A key element is going to be how interoperable are these going to be and are able to converse with each other, given that there are going to be many protocols. And I do feel that the bridges and the connectors between different blockchains are going to play a vital role for a smooth transactions as well as smooth process between the consent layer, the privacy layer, and then the approval layer.
So Prasanna, as we are talking about this aspect, what makes a good digital identity, as what Ravi has already highlighted, that a single parameter or single identity is required. But as Mushi sir had already highlighted, that blockchain will play a crucial role going forward. What's your opinion on this?
Yeah, certainly. At this moment, I could see that a lot of knowledge is flowing on a digital identity with the conversation with Devjani, Ravikant, and Mushir. And going forward, I think what I can see that blockchain is going to be one of the answer for implementation of better digital identity. A good digital identity today, maybe in India, we can talk about Aadhar, right? So wherein if you talk about it is supported by government, which is a unique, but there are some additional values as Ravikant was speaking about. How do we really make sure that it is unique and there should not be any duplicate copies of those Aadhar, right? And followed by the other aspect, which is consent management, which is getting developed. So I think and the last but not the least aspect, which I'll talk about, which is interoperability. Today, India might have its own Aadhar, how this same person can operate in another country, right? I think some of the projects like Digital 2020 could really help. Like Germany is really building on a similar platform. So let's look at how we can have a blockchain-based digital identity, but moreover, blockchain has its own challenges or a maturity cycle where interoperability will play a major role. I think interoperable digital identity will be the future of digital identity. Yeah.
So Ravi, as we are talking about this aspect, the follow-up question to what Prasanna has already highlighted, as he has already mentioned about Aadhar and its broader use, roughly around 1.3 billion odd population. So can you recommend, if Aadhar is already there, Aadhar to hai aur wahan pe successfully implement bhi ho chuka hai. So how India should use digital identity? Any recommendation or any projects Polygon has taken, to take this initiative forward?
When it comes to India, we pretty much have similar problem related to identity, what we are seeing in the other part of the globe. However, they are at a different scale, right? And we also have few more layers within the paradigm if we try to differentiate based upon education, monthly income level, or let's say access to internet, right? So if when it comes to, digital identity, as we have been discussing, Aadhar, DigiLocker, eSign, I think those has differentiated India. And we have a lot of age when it comes to digital identity compared to the rest of the world. I mean, the way I see, India can certainly leapfrog basis this kind of a foundational layer that we have for digital identities, creating like a utopia scenario connecting different parts of the journey for a citizen. For example, getting a digital identity right in the hospital for a kid. From there on, when there is a need for vaccination, there are automatic notification from the nearby hospital, because they know the age or let's say the time period for the kid. Moving on, let's say how many schools should be open in a periphery, depending upon the age group of the kids. From there on, moving to what kind of job opportunities are there, basis the credentials that a person has acquired. From there on, let's say it could be the medical facilities for the senior citizens and so on. So the entire journey can be connected based upon the type of data that can be there for the individuals. And again, there has to be privacy maintained for this one. So yeah. I believe this kind of layer would be very, very fundamental. And what we are doing at Polygon is adding certain types of project, especially in the virtual world, how this kind of identity play a very critical role, whether it is, giving a voting right to an individual, whether we are talking about transferring the digital identity related assets from one person to another person, will management and so on. So there are different aspects that we are connecting at.
Fantastic. So few keywords, Debjani ma'am, I've picked up, what Ravi has highlighted is this transfer of its ownership as a digital, of digital assets to others as far as virtual world is concerned. And there are several projects which the company is taking as far as digital identity concern in the medical field, or as far as schools, as far as the education sector is concerned. So what's your view and opinion on this?
Yeah, of course. I mean, I also work with Earth ID, which is a decentralized identity solution. So we are also finding a lot of interest in the edutech sector. We are actually going to production with a couple of projects in that space. Outside India, mostly, in Middle East countries or Australia. There are so many different areas, not only in India, but outside, yeah, we can find it. On the top of that, there is a new sector which is pretty interested in this area, which is neobanking. So neobanks are some digital banks, who are associated with a traditional bank. So let's say that the users who are already affiliated with a traditional bank, without any further, investment, they can directly get access to the neobank if we can create this kind of solution. So this is one sector where we are finding a lot of interest.
So Bushir sir, what's your opinion as we are talking about a broader recommendation as far as India is concerned? Prasanna has already highlighted about Aadhar and broader initiative which India should adopt. There is something which is coming out, the project which is taken up by Polygon and Earth ID as well. What's your view on this?
I mean, look, India is very unique globally in terms of having mapped, almost 90%, 95% of our population onto a digital identity that can be used, right?
Sure.
And it's just a matter of regulations in terms of consent, etc. And it's all mapped out. So you have to be very balanced in the use of, do you really need blockchain for a lot of activities? Maybe, maybe not. But currently, I don't think for all applications we need blockchain. I think there is a 3 to 5 year period where we can then start deploying, because scale is going to be a very important element for blockchain projects. And when we're talking about 1.2 billion people, and this is not going to be like one check every day, it's going to be billions of checks that are going to be used for a variety of different applications. So I think there is a utility. I see it as starting with smaller use cases, property checks, a bunch of other things, maybe for a few loans, etc. You could link it for more high value transactions. Whereas for smaller value transactions, I think Aadhar is more than enough. We also have to be very mindful that less than half, about 800 million people, so 80 crore people are on the internet, but 60 crore people are not yet on the internet technically, right? So the use of digital identity also has to be powered with access to internet. If you don't have that, then you're going to struggle with use of blockchain, right? You can use Aadhar ID because you're just entering the number and that can be verified. But with blockchain, you do need a connection to internet. So we need to build bridges which will be helping with the off-chain, on-chain element when there is no internet connectivity. Yeah.
So Ravi, my next question is to you is, as Mushir has already highlighted, there are roughly around 80 odd crore people who are using this internet facility, and the services we are offering is roughly around for 80 odd crore people. But there are still 60 odd crore people that are not using internet. But for them who are using this internet facility, scalability and speed has always been an issue with blockchain. So do you think decentralized blockchain-based identity would be verified quickly with fast transactions? And since you are a huge organization and working on this aspect very closely, so what's your view on this?
So certainly, the type of innovation and development happening in this space, I'm sure that if we are talking next year, we will not be talking about the throughput and the scalability. I think this is the problem. This is a problem that is getting addressed. Let's say at Polygon, we are aiming to scale Ethereum to 1 billion users. Right, so that is the type of scaling that we are aiming for without sacrificing decentralization or security or speed. Let me tell you the rationale behind why we are confident in terms of talking for this steep number. So we believe that making proof generation more efficient has been one of the most important challenge for scalability. Now with the ZK rollups and the ZK solutions out there, if I take one of the example of one of the solution within Polygon umbrella, which is Polygon 0. 2 years back, generating a recursive proof used to take at least 2 minutes of time. Now the innovation that has gone out, we are able to generate the similar kind of recursive proof in 170 milliseconds. And this is just on a single laptop. If you try to scale it up with the hardwares and the innovation that is going on, I'm sure that the scalability that we can achieve is like infinite.
Fantastic.
So with this, we anticipate that proving time and cost will continue to decrease substantially in the near future, and we will not have this concern in terms of scalability for blockchain.
So ma'am, what's your view? Say what Ravi is highlighting is, some process which used to take roughly around 120 odd seconds is taking 170 milliseconds. So what's your view as far as the growing technology aspect is concerned?
Yeah, I mean, this is news to me. In fact, this is wonderful because, we also did some NFR testing and we found that, whatever you said is absolutely true, that, blockchain ecosystems are usually slower than centralized ecosystems in general. But if Polygon can achieve it, because we also work with Polygon. So we are a product.
Fantastic.
And Polygon is one of the blockchains that we use. So if we can get that kind of scalability, then it's wonderful. But I would also like to say that blockchain is there going to stay, definitely. But at the same time, we would also have a centralized ecosystem. Yep. Both of them would coexist. And on the top of that, we would also have confidential computing. So together, these three can give rise to a lot of new use cases. And perhaps in future, let's say in India, we got 1.3 billion people in India. And let's say that we are going for something like a general election on blockchain, let's say from remote election. That means the user can vote from a remote location and use blockchain because blockchain has got its own capabilities.
Perfect.
Previously, I thought that perhaps we do not have a blockchain ecosystem to answer to that. But yeah, if Polygon can do it, then wonderful. But at the same time, we would also need a centralized repository because the centralized repository would be used for deduplication. Let's say that somebody is applying for Aadhar, then that should be some centralized repository where you can check that the person has not created a Aadhar ID previously, right? There should be some check somewhere, right? So centralized repository and blockchain would coexist. On the top of that, for matching the sensitive data, we can either go for zero knowledge proof, or we can also go for confidential computing. So all the three can be used together.
So Mushi sir, as we are talking about time taken as far as confirmation is concerned, for users it's roughly around 4 to 5 minutes on the block as we are confirming any transaction. But here we are, Polygon, who is confirming that they have scaled it down to 170 millisecond. So what's your view as far as this race towards faster transaction is concerned?
It's wonderful if it can be achieved, right? And I'm sure Polygon's working to make that scalable and achievable for the billion users that they're talking about. Speed is definitely a criteria. I do put a word of caution. Sometimes we overplay speed. My background, I come as a high frequency trader, right? My trade used to take 170 milliseconds to go from India to the US and back. And we were very sensitive to 200-300 millisecond changes. But when you are doing things like identity checks, etc., I think there is 1 or 2 seconds or up to 5 seconds is actually a fairly acceptable time frame. If you were doing it in person, you spend minutes. If you're doing it online, the ... is roughly 10 to 20 seconds for verifications. Sure. So I think we don't need a race to zero or race to instant in terms of under a second. If it can be done, it's great, because it can have a lot of applications which don't require full identity checks and partial identity checks. So it'll be wonderful, but I don't think speed at that level is necessary currently. With 5G and 6G in the future, that will become very important. Fantastic. To be inbuilt. Yeah.
So Prasanna, what's your view as we are talking about such a great initiative with technology giant, as far as a huge company, an initiative which Polygon has taken? What's your view on that?
I think it's an opportunity for many companies. Polygon is one of them, and they are doing very fantastic. And what we would say that Ethereum accelerators companies, right? Polygon, or there are many more, right? So the Cosmos or Solana. I think all these platforms has an opportunity really see what all the use cases they can bring on to the citizens of the world. But at the same time, what Mushiri said, right? So it has to be a cautious approach, rather a practical approach, doing a proof of concept, pilots for a particular use cases, right?
Right.
If I talk about some of the use cases in India centric, it's already, MIT is already working with some of the banks on video KYC on top of a blockchain, right? Wherein we could see that if it is get rolled out, all the bank account can have a unique identity and if these customers want to open another bank account in another bank, I think they can really use this platform. And similarly, I think payment platforms, right? Typically, these days we talk a lot about central bank digital currency, and many countries has already started pilots, implementation, and that too on a blockchain. What is that? We have to look at interoperability aspects, centralization aspect, the way Debjani has spoken about, or blockchain is there, but let's understand nitty-gritties of a blockchain technology, what comes as an adoption, right? Tomorrow's identity system gonna be an invisible system.
Right.
Today we may talk about billions of people, but I think tomorrow we have to talk about those machines, wearables. They also gonna have their own identity, which will be backed up by a human identity. I think world is gonna be more beautiful. I think that is why we need to do a lot of research. I think blockchain will be a game changer in that aspect. Yeah.